and welcome back to the Give and Go. I'm your co-host Reynoso here with my boy
Soltero.
¡Arriba las Chivas! Let's go! Let's go! A massive shout out to producer Rod, who not only produces high quality video, but he produces high quality audio as well, alongside Reynoso too, sneaking in the back as well. Shout out my boys. And before I get into any of this, I want to say welcome to our new viewers. In the past month, the Give and Go has accrued over 8,000 subscribers on YouTube due to our shorts just popping the fuck off.
Oh, nice.
That's a ton of people that's being added, that's joining the Give and Go community.
Good.
And I want to welcome them to the family, to a full podcast episode. Have a seat. Grab a drink. Make yourself comfortable at home, because we got a lot, and I mean a lot of football to catch up on. But obviously, the biggest thing to touch on, the first thing I want to talk about, the thing that I have been thinking about since the game happened last night. I haven't slept. I have not slept.
Who could?
I have been awake this whole fucking time. Chivas walked into El Azteca being down 1-0. Paunovic saw the challenge at hand. The players saw the massive obstacle they had to overcome of winning by not one, but 2 goals in this crucial match against their rivals. And I don't know how else to build this up, man. I really don't know what else I can say here. They fucking did it, bro.
They did it.
They fucking did it. Chivas walked out of El Azteca with a 3-1 victory, possibly one of the greatest collapses we've seen in Liga MX, and specifically with America. And Chivas walk out with an Aztecazo, bro. An Aztecazo. Alan Mozo, Ronaldo Cisneros, and finally El Chiquete Orozco nabbing the game winner in front of all those America fans. Chivas is a finalist.
Yeah.
In this season, Chivas is a finalist, and I cannot believe it, man. My voice is already going away because I was screaming so much yesterday, man. I was talking to so many Chivas supporters on Instagram. I got so many videos, so much love and hate, granted, but so much attention for so many Guadalajara fans, because El Rebaño Sagrado is back in a season where we didn't think this would happen, in a season where Paunovic is making his debut, in the season where we have this incredible team energy, where we have nearly the same players as we've had before, but just a better coach to control and guide these players, where we have players that are motivated, that are guided by the ghost of Bofo Bautista, Ramon Morales, Omar Bravo, Osvaldo Sanchez, all these legends. They finally looked up. They looked up to the fucking sky.
Yeah.
And they said, you know what? We're going to go to the fucking final. And Chivas is set to face off against Tigres 2022-2023 Liga MX Clausura final to go for La 13, bro. The 13th trophy in Liga MX history. Chivas has a chance at history, brother.
First off, I just want to say congratulations. Honestly, what a fucking game. Liga MX had a banger on its hands going into the semifinals. America against Chivas, El Clásico in Mexico. And dude, it completely delivered. I mean, if you saw that first leg, those first 15 minutes were electric. It was incredible. And after 15 minutes, I was actually like panting. I was out of breath. And it was the same thing in the second leg in the Azteca. There's just something about this matchup, man, that honestly brings the best out of these players, because they rise to the occasion. And we saw it once again in La DF, and what a game for Chivas, because to be completely honest, and if you had seen the podcast before, I didn't think they'd be able to pull it off. I really didn't. But I want to throw it back to you real quick.
Please.
1-0 at halftime. Chivas, what are you thinking? Because they got a nervous goal. It was like 15 minutes in.
Yes, and that goal, my God. Roberto Alvarado finally showing the glow and signs of life that I've been hoping out of him for years, dude.
What a move.
An incredible run. I want to ask you real quick, did you think that was a foul in the build-up that he had on Sendejas?
I'm going to say no. I really don't think so. I mean, what, it was like a somewhat of
Corner
an
of the box.
aggressive
It was
nudge.
pretty aggressive. But the way that I saw the game be ref, I saw the ref kind of let a lot of physicality, bro. It was a
Yeah.
very physical match. But I had a lot of America fans DM me about that specific play, and I'm biased, so I wanted to ask you and see what you thought of it as someone that doesn't have a stake in it.
Yeah, no stake in this. I don't think it's a foul. I think it is aggressive. Maybe it's borderline, but for me, it's always fair. That specific type of tackle. But then beyond that, dude, a perfect little 1-2 going past like 3 America players. Then he does a perfect little chop, and then he sees the open through ball pass.
What a ball.
He plays it perfectly. What's crazy, though, is that Cisneros tries to dribble around Malagon, doesn't actually work because the America player gets in front of him.
Yeah.
But then stumbles, loses his footing, and the ball just trickles in.
And that's the magic of the gods that I brought up last week, bro. That's what that is, man.
That's what that is.
What else is that, man? A player falling in that crucial of a moment guides the ball in. I think it ends up being an own goal, maybe.
Technically,
I think
because
so.
he like whiffs it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the weirdest finish, but with how tight it was in that final third, it almost felt like that was kind of necessary in order to get that ball into the back of the net. If he would have gone for the shot right away, I feel like Malagon, with the form he's been right now, probably would have gotten a foot or his body on it. But regardless, Chivas goes up 1-0. And I lost my shit, of course, because that was exactly what we needed, an early goal to feel any sort of hope going forward. But what really bothered me, man, at least in that moment in time, was our game plan following that goal.
Okay, so the idea, like what, that Chivas just didn't push as much?
Yeah, it seemed like Paunovic was comfortable sitting back, letting America come at him. Granted, America didn't really generate that many chances outside of long-range efforts, but offensively, I didn't see enough of that eagerness that I was hoping they would have. But you got to keep in mind, it's a 90-minute game in Liga MX. Teams do this, and so I wasn't completely drawn out of it, but I was just hopeful that we would have carried that momentum from the first goal and just gone at him, because Chivas specifically really thrives on that collective energy they can generate. And given that America looked a little deflated after that first goal, I felt that we should have taken advantage. And so by halftime, I'm feeling good. I still feel like there's a good chance, but from what I saw happen after the goal, I was getting a little worried, and I became even more worried about 15 minutes into the second half, when America started to look like the classical America of this whole season.
Exactly, yeah. No, that's a great point, because I actually thought that Chivas did well in that first half, because I actually thought Chivas did really well to get that early goal. But you're right, they did kind of let their foot off the pedal, but I wasn't too worried from a Chivas perspective, because America didn't look like their full offensive selves. But again, I think it is just credit to how active Chivas were defensively. But they've been like that for the past 4 games in the playoffs, man. So I wasn't surprised by Chivas' defensive work rate, but America's lack of, I guess, just like overall connective passes in the final third. I was actually kind of shocked, because, like, guys, you're at home. Like, let's show a little more for these fans. But I also kind of understood that they only needed 1 goal, and then Chivas would have needed to respond with 2. So I was like, all right, well, maybe they're just going to try and just squeeze in 1 goal over the course of the next hour, and they don't want to risk themselves being even more open to a Chivas offensive display. So I kind of understood both sides, but it was interesting that Chivas didn't really go at the throats of America, because they did look deflated. But yeah, that second goal, Diego Valdez with a beautiful little flick header, the Kevin De Bruyne of Liga MX, bro, honestly, because he feeds just as much as he scores. It's ridiculous. His technical ability is one of the best as far as midfield creation is concerned in this league, and he gets a really big goal, and at that point, thought it was over. Yep. Because Chivas would have needed 2 goals to go through. There's no way that America botched this. But look, I'm gonna be very clear here. Chivas definitely deserve this. There's nothing in my book that says they didn't deserve this, or that there was anything even controversial. But for me, the red card obviously dictated the entire result. Because
that's what we needed, man.
That's
the miracle that we needed.
It was the miracle, and did it come through. Fidalgo with a rash challenge. It looked bad. Yeah. It looked really bad. Direct red, nothing else the ref can do. Fidalgo goes back to Spain for the summer. I don't know what the hell he's going to do. Because, my God, he really fucked America over in this, because at that point, you're down a man, and Chivas took advantage, like complete advantage, because 5 minutes later, 10 minutes later, We get that, or not we, sorry. hey,
hey,
I got my hype.
The Atletico shirt looks like Chivas,
Kind
bro.
of does. Chivas get that disallowed goal. And at that point, when it got disallowed, I was like, no. Because I didn't think it was a foul. Oh, okay, well, how do I say this?
It's touchy, man.
It's touchy because his leg extends out. If you guys haven't seen it, go watch the highlights and see this exact play. Victor Guzman sticks out his leg and trips an America player in the process of the ball coming into the box. Ref calls it as a foul, so therefore no goal. But man, like, the ball is not even close to that interaction in my opinion. And even then, the leg extension, it's not full-fledged for me. Not enough to be like, oh, that's definitively not a goal now. Like, that was just too much. It was too much of a reach for me from a referee perspective to be like, all right, we're going to have to take this out. And when that happened, I was like, oh, this is what the Mexican journalists are talking about. As far as America getting slight preference over referees and decisions in El Clásicos. Because I truly thought it should have stood. But then, as we ended up seeing literally 10 minutes later, 2 back-to-back Chivas goals. And I was just shocked at how America just could not respond. Fernando Ortiz ended up making, 4 defensive changes? So when they eventually needed a goal just to equalize it and go through as a higher seed, they only had Roger Martinez to look to. So it was over at that moment. And I was just completely shocked at how the last 30 minutes unfolded in this game because, I think it just shows you how drastic a red card can really be, man. Look, once again, no offense to Guadalajara, but I don't think they pull this off if America just keep 11 men on the pitch.
Yeah, it was around the 60th minute, I think, when I really almost nearly lost hope because Diego Valdez scores that goal. It's 1-1. We need 2 goals in about 30 minutes. And the way, based off of what I said earlier with their game plan up to that point, I didn't think Paunovic approached it that right. I thought he was a little too cautious with it. Yeah. And I ended up just thinking, like, we need something quick. We need something miraculous to get through. The biggest moment of the match, the biggest moments of the Liguilla so far is that red card. Fidalgo lunging in, no question about it. It's a red. I saw that. I immediately perked up like a dog who heard some fucking keys rattle, man. I was like, what the fuck is happening now? There might be something. But I was like, let's wait and see. Dude. And the Chivas team that I saw in those last 30 minutes versus what I saw from minute 15 to minute 60 was completely different. Yeah. It almost seemed like they were expecting something like this to happen and they knew exactly what to do. Like a snake just waiting for their prey to get close in and then finally just strike in. Yeah. That's exactly what Chivas did. I don't remember how the foul was drawn, but we have a free kick at the corner of the box, really dangerous proximity. Yeah, this goes. And it looks like Alexis Vega is going to bang it in. Instead, it's Roberto Alvarado, I believe, getting an assist to a wide open Alan Mozo, who didn't start this match, by the way, but infiltrated this Chivas team with so much energy when he finally joined in, just scoring an absolute rocket of a goal from the top of the box, aiming it perfectly, putting so much bounce on it that Malagon had no chance of saving it, and Americanistas knowing that they fucked up in that moment because they left him too open, bro. Yeah. Too much space at the top of the box in that moment in time. Following that, you got momentum. You got the crowd kind of getting nervous. You got murmurs going around. You got an America team that suddenly looks completely different. Granted, I do believe that just as important as that red card was for Chivas, I think Fernando Ortiz and his decisions were also a key factor in giving Chivas an easier route to pulling off the 3-1 victory. I think Fernando Ortiz fucked up, man. I think he fucked up. And he looked like that, too. He looked like a kid who got his candy stolen from him, man.
He was so upset at the end of the game.
Upset, dude. Yeah. And in the press conference and everything I've seen since then, he looks like he knows he fucked up. Like, there's a shame he has, but he's just like, if I can just live this part of my career out, maybe I might have something in the future. But he knows, bro. Yeah. He knows that he fucked up bad. Momentum is really strong, and a beautiful ball comes in. Chiquete Orozco is at the end of it, and he celebrates with so much goddamn passion that it's beautiful to see, man. Chivas players all around the pitch, on their knees, on the floor, just celebrating. You can see the passion that these players have. Fans in the stands having fucking exorcisms, bro. Losing their goddamn shit up there, man. Losing their minds. And me, myself, as people saw on Instagram and on our story, I was posting so much, losing my fucking mind, dude. I lost it all. I could not believe that we were in a position now where we were up 3-1. And not just that, I was fully confident that we would hold that lead and that America wouldn't generate another single chance for the rest of the game because of the mistakes Fernando Ortiz made, but also the way the team just looked. The fact that they were so deflated, the fact that they were so defeated by the end of it. An image I haven't seen from America against Chivas specifically in a really long time. And so to me, that was just mind-boggling because it's so drastic how the situation looked around the 60th minute after Diego Valdez scored his goal, and then how it ends 30 minutes later. The length of a Seinfeld episode is absolutely bonkers. And we end it with Chivas celebrating like they won a title, bro.
Honestly.
Celebrating like they won a title. And just fans all over the world screaming their asses off, drinking up, and just having the time of their lives because we just defeated our biggest rival in this league. Yeah. The biggest result Chivas has had since that final against Tigres, and one of the biggest Superclasico results we've ever had in our history.
Yeah, dude, so well said. I think I saw that it's the first time that America and Chivas have played in the semifinals since like 16 years ago, 15 years ago. It's been a long time. And it did feel like it, man. Like a playoff face-off against these two teams this deep into the season, it felt rare. It's definitely something that I'd not really seen like ever.
Yeah.
But I really like that point you made about Ortiz and the mistakes that he made because, you know, this brings up a question not just in this situation, but in big knockout situations in general. When you go down a man, what does a coach do? In general, I like it when a coach only replaces the man who got ejected, right? So in this case, a midfielder, all right, let's take off a striker, put in a midfielder, and that's it. I'm going to keep my wingers on. I'm going to keep the rest of my midfielders on. I'm not going to go defensive because they've been playing for 40, 50 minutes or the entire game. So they're still game fit. And they know exactly the type of mentality that is needed on the pitch right now. When Ortiz makes 4 defensive changes, takes out Zendejas, Diego Valdez, Henry Martin when you have to, and I understand that, but when you take out all of those type of players, you are literally left with nothing offensively. And I don't even mean like going at Chivas' goal. I just mean like ball retention. Yeah. The idea that you can string together more than 3 or 4 passes, hold on to the ball, but when you just bring on fullbacks and an extra center back, you're not going to get any of that. And then beyond that, when Chivas are so driven and determined, how can a guy who's on the bench just immediately get on the wing and try to guard Alexis Vega? Like, that's really tough to do in a high-pressure situation. And so, yeah, I completely agree. I thought Ortiz made some really bad mistakes, and he just got way too defensive, got in his head. I understand why he did it, but again, in general, no matter the situation, I never like it when a coach makes 4 or 5 changes due to 1 red card ejection. I always like that like for like swap instead.
And on the other side of the sideline, I mean, Paunovic, bro. First season with Chivas.
That is crazy, yeah.
It's reminiscent of what Matias Almeida did too in his debut season, finding a way to take Chivas this deep into the tournament. I think there's like some weird coincidences happening. Chivas beat Atlas as well on the way to their final by the same result as well too, 1-1 tie in 2017. And then I believe that they finished 3rd place in Liga MX as well. That's also another coincidence. And then there's one more thing I saw, but
the dates are the exact same.
Really?
Uh-huh. So the dates for the finals are the exact same.
Oh wow! Oh yeah, and the same opponent that we're facing
and
too.
The same opponent. Not just like, oh, it's like the end of May. I'm saying like it's May 26th and May 28th or whatever it ends up being.
Interesting. So we could see Chivas lift the title exactly 6 years after?
Exactly 6 years later,
man. That's ridiculous. Something I loved about this matchup, and it's something I do want to address because there's an Americanista side that has to be acknowledged of frustration of the fact that you had the better team in this matchup. And I think that was clear with how they were playing and how they approached both legs, winning away from home. I thought that was massive, the way they did it in Estadio Akron. There's a frustration there because they blew it due to the coach, due to the players, you could say, due to the atmosphere, whatever it might be. But I guess the only thing I want to say is thank you. Thank you, because They brought back a childlike excitement I had for this team and for this matchup specifically, man. You mentioned it a little bit earlier where the atmosphere for both of these games was something that I felt was truly new and fresh to Liga MX and something I don't think I've seen to this level in a long, long time between both these rivals.
Yeah.
El Azteca was like filled up, bro. And that's not something we often see. It's such a massive stadium. It's hard to fill up. But the Americanistas showed up and they were there to support their team. And likewise, in El Estadio Akron, we talked about that last podcast, looked like a fucking World Cup stadium, dude. It looked amazing. The atmosphere that both these teams created, the stage that they set for us and the fans of Liga MX, I feel that it's exactly what Liga MX needed. I feel that it's just amazing to see all these fans and all these people be so intrigued by such a matchup. So many people either focus on the collapse of America or the joy of Chivas to see a Mexican team, an all-Mexican team back in the final. An incredible just display of football. And it's good to see because I feel like Mexico has been lacking that a little bit when it comes to a Superclasico. It's been a little underwhelming in past years.
Yeah.
But finally we see an amazing stage. And I personally want to say good game. GG. To these America fans, America fanatics out there, because it was a great match overall. It took a fucking miracle at the end of the day for us to win. And personally, I want to see this in the final, man. I want to see this matchup in the final now.
Yeah, the same. Like that's my biggest takeaway is if America can kind of use this as like a revenge memory where they try and come back, and if Chivas can maintain their good form now, if we ever get a Chivas America final within the next like 2 years specifically, so it's really fresh,
yes,
that'd be lit. It'd be the craziest final in Mexico for like 20 years. So yeah, I want it to happen. It's just based off of this semifinal matchup. Mm-hmm.
If anything, I just want to take a second. I just want to take this in.
No, take
it. I don't know when the next podcast will be where I can have a beer. I can celebrate my Chivas being in the final, bro.
That is crazy.
It's so long, man.
And kind of to add to that, I think especially when Chiquete scored and they knew that they were probably going to go through, there was so much passion, but I think it's because even the Chivas players knew that the task at hand was very difficult because America looked so good going into the semifinal matchup, and they looked even better going into the second leg. So for Chivas to come out as victors and to be the ones that go to the finals instead in the Estadio Azteca, it's crazy.
Yeah.
It is wild. So yeah, a huge moment for anybody Chivas related, player, coach, fan. So yeah, take it all in, brother.
Massive.
Soak it in.
Massive, dude. Massive.
If I can interject for just a
Please.
moment. So last night, I'm just chilling in my room, and then I hear, like a yell. And at first I think it's Reynoso, like hurt his leg or something. Or like he stubbed his toe or something happened. I'm like, what? And then 3 seconds later, he's like, goal! Like just celebration, right? Celebration and goal.
Yeah, my shit.
And then I was like, oh, that's what's happening, right?
Right.
And then at the end, I just hear like stomping and cheering, and it's like, we're going to the final. We're going to the final. And I haven't heard that much energy, that much excitement and happiness since the World Cup.
World Cup.
And even then, I think that this what I heard last night was more energy than on the World Cup.
Yeah. Because I was responding to people with videos too. I has a couple of people that are like, what the fuck? Reynoso sent me a video on Instagram. Some random people. Shout out my boy Jose. Shout out my boy Fernando.
Yeah.
My boy Daniel. I got so many people. I just sent random videos because they DM me like, hey, Reynoso, look what the fuck is happening. I'm just losing my goddamn mind. I think the league is better when Chivas. I'm gonna get my shit off. I think the league is better when Chivas are this good, man.
I said that a week ago, and I meant it too. I think the league is better when Chivas and America together are like doing really well, and I'm talking like top 6, top 6 in the league.
Oh, and I definitely think the coach saw the speech you gave.
Yeah, man, that shit. Oh man, that shit really worked.
It worked. It worked, man. Be proud of that. Fucking hell, dude.
Now, with how bombastic and how amazing this semifinal matchup was, we had another semifinal matchup happen as well. That was a clásico, el clásico regio, Tigres Monterrey. With personally, I'm gonna just say this: with how exciting the America Chivas matchup was, I thought this one was the complete opposite, bro. I thought this one was a tough watch. I'm gonna be honest with you, bro.
No, be
I
very
struggled
honest.
watching this one, and I thought the overall tactics and approach to the match were interesting from both sides. And because we've been so outspoken about Tigres and how they've been this whole season, I want to lay this one off to you first. Tigres is in the final, bro.
Tigres in the final.
Tigres is in the final, facing off against Chivas, the same matchup that happened in 2017. This final projects to be much different than from what it was back then because of the state of both of these teams, and specifically Tigres, who I guess at the end of the day just keeps finding ways to win.
They keep finding ways to win. If you have to make that comparison, then let me play along with it. 6 years ago, Chivas won. In my opinion, 6 years later, they are better now than they were then, and Tigres are worse now than they were then. So you would think, hopefully, maybe Chivas can see this through and lift their 13th title. But to talk specifically about Tigres Monterrey, I think we have to talk about one specific player, man. Sebastian Cordova, which is crazy, considering the preface that we gave him going into these playoffs.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think the thing is, I think my take still stands.
I think it does too, which is funny because I do want to talk about that. First off, just accolades wise, the first Mexican player to score in 5 consecutive
You're fucking kidding.
playoff matches.
5?
5 consecutive. He scored in every one. He has not scored.
Bruh.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh my God.
I know. It's crazy. And some of them really good goals. The first, like that little side footer against Monterrey.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Yeah, tough one.
What a little volley. Cordova. My goodness. And then just constantly getting in the box in the second leg, finding space between the defenders. But more so, it's his ability to be clinical. In these high pressure situations, he's just able to like separate himself from the moment and just score. It's interesting how he's doing it because it's not like he's dribbling through players like, maybe let's say Diego Lainez did back when he was with America a couple of years ago. It's not like how Gignac would, and as far as just getting the ball at the top of the box and scoring an absolute banger, Cordova is just sneaking his way in and scoring bangers of his own, but again, just in his own way. It's so impressive. But one thing that we did say about Cordova going into this playoffs was just how maybe disconnected he looks from himself versus the game. And in a way, I kind of still think that's the truth because my biggest thing that I can say is I don't think any of this translates to the Mexican national team. And unfortunately, whereas for example, maybe we see Beltran get some midfield action for Mexico,
bro.
Alan
At this
Mozo, fullback,
point.
exactly. Maybe even bring Brizuela on the bench. I'm not saying start him.
Nah, we're good with that.
But Brizuela's had a good player.
Yes.
But yeah, my point is Chivas have shown that their players are playing at a very high level, and the ones that are really shining, I think, are deserving of their accolades because I think they can translate that to, for example, the Mexican national team. For Cordova, I don't really know where this translates to because a lot of this, in my opinion, is coming down to the opponents that they're facing and just the circumstances that Tigres are finding themselves in. Now, I'll give the credit to Cordova and to Tigres in general. They're taking what is given to them.
Yeah.
And that takes a lot. It takes a lot of experience, but also just a lot of mental toughness because that's what this game was in Monterrey at the Estadio BBVA. That's what this was. This was a gritty affair, man, because dude, I swear there was something in the water in the air that night. Neither team wanted to be there. That's what it looked like. Dude, that first half was horrible. Horrible. Monterrey honestly didn't even look like they wanted the ball. It was so bad. They could not string together more than 2 or 3 passes. Tigres looked okay. They looked like they've looked this entire playoff series, which is decent. They didn't honestly impress me, even though they ended up winning the match. And I understand it. It takes a lot to win. But my overall take at the end of the day is I'm not impressed by this Tigres side. Whereas I'm very impressed by Chivas de Guadalajara. I'm very impressed. Tigres, I can recognize that they're very experienced and that they've done well to get to this final, and they deserve it. Against Toluca and against Monterrey, they've deserved to go through. But I'm just telling you, man, if they had faced America or Chivas beforehand, I don't think Tigres get to a final, Whereas Chivas, I think if they play anybody and they played America, they get to the
Atlas.
final. Atlas, dude. Atlas was crazy.
Yeah.
It was 1-1 at the end of
Yeah.
it. For me, Tigres just have not done enough for me to be like, oh, okay, they can go toe-to-toe against Chivas and win. So, yeah, that's my ultimate takeaway in the second leg.
But
Again,
what happened in Monterrey? Like,
oh, yeah,
we
yeah.
projected them to be way better in this match, man. What would you think that? What happened? Was it bad coaching? What happened tactically that ended up giving Tigres the ultimate result in this match?
Two things, and they're kind of interconnected. For me, the biggest takeaway that I had is why Monterrey just caved in this game is, one, the mental game that Tigres played. Within the first 5 minutes, there was like 5 fouls. Literally a foul every minute, and I understood. I was like, oh, okay. Tigres, Robert Dante Siboldi has told his team, just put a body on these guys. If they get past you, take them down. I don't give a fuck. Put your body on them and make them know that if you want to win this game, it's going to be a mental taxing effort. And that's exactly what happened, dude. For the entire 90 minutes, it was foul after foul after foul. Monterrey, if they got past a Tigres defender, was immediately met by a Tigres aggressor and was taken down. They had no space to breathe or to play their type of football. And my second point is, and it's connected, they didn't respond to that. Neither player nor coach responded to the physical game that Tigres presented to them. And that's why I'm disappointed in Monterrey. Because, dude, adapt. You're the number 1 seeded team in this league. You've proven that you can play against anybody. Adapt. Maybe you put on an extra type of creative midfielder. Bring on Cortizo maybe 20, 30 minutes earlier. Keep Maxi Mesa out there. I know you kept Berterame out there. Sure, why not? But bring on an extra creative midfielder, whatever you have to do to get more touches on the ball and to move the ball around quicker so Tigres can't catch up to you and hit you. But they didn't do any of that, bro. They didn't do any of that.
Yeah.
They let the game just stay the way it was, which was a very physical one. And Tigres won that aspect. And then they got just that lucky moment. A nice cross ball in, and Cordova's there to finish. So Tigres did enough for me game plan-wise, but I'm still not impressed by their overall offense, by their overall defense. For me, Monterrey just had no response to Tigres, and beyond that, I don't think they had the mental toughness to get past a game like this. And the thing is, it kind of makes sense because this is exactly what happened in the last campaign, Apertura. Monterrey were the best seeded team going into the playoffs, didn't even make it to the finals. And they win. And I remember watching it going into the playoffs. Monterrey were looking shaky even before the playoffs started in the Apertura. And I was like, oh, what the hell's going on? They've been so good for 15 straight games. Now they're going to get a little shaky, and they did. Same thing happened here in the Clausura, just a little bit later. But again, if Monterrey had played Chivas or America, it's like Tigres, I don't think they would have won, man. So a false number 1 seed, in my opinion. Very disappointed. Congrats to Tigres because overall they did have the better game plan, I guess.
Yeah, I do think you don't accidentally make it to a final, but
Right.
bro, I think Tigres gets as close to that as they fucking can, man. They ride that line as close as they can because Monterrey almost won it, right? And it was in the last 10 minutes. They scored a goal, ended up being called offside, I believe, by VAR or handball. I think it was a handball in the bouncing of the ball.
Guzman was pleading for a handball, but the actual call was offside.
Offside.
Yeah.
And then after that, Tigres saw the opportunity and they took advantage and they ultimately won the game. But it's the takeaway that I had early on where I was like, that if Tigres ends up making the final, then it's confirmation that despite them not having the best chemistry or the best style of play, they have the best individuals. And ultimately, if the opponent makes enough mistakes, they have the talent, such as San Cordova, to pounce on that and take advantage of it and go all the way to a Liga MX final. So for me, it sets itself up to be a very well-contested final between Chivas and Tigres, because going into it, I see Chivas as the favorite. I see Chivas as a team with more momentum, more confidence, and I guess you could even say like an element of like magic to it. I mean, the way the country has reacted to Chivas winning has been incredible, whereas Tigres, they're kind of being underestimated now.
Yeah.
But Tigres genuinely has a chance here to take advantage of a Chivas team if they don't approach the game right, and if Pavlovich ends up getting it completely wrong, which I don't see happening, but there's a chance, there's an angle here where if Tigres takes advantage of that, can see themselves winning a Liga MX title despite having one of the sloppiest seasons I've seen in recent memory on their way to a title.
Yeah.
They did it against Monterrey. They got the massive result. They beat their rivals with a somewhat big bro type of approach, man. Because that's what your analysis ultimately comes down to, where they showed up to the park and they showed out. They were the older kids at the park that just beat up the little kids, man, and just showed them how much talent and skill they have. But now you have a Chivas team that in 2017 found a way, despite them having a better team, Tigres that is, having a better team and having a better situation at hand and more informed players in their prime with Gignac. I'm going into this match honestly feeling good, man.
Yeah.
I'm feeling good. I can see it. I see Chivas winning this game. I don't know if comfortably because it's a final, but I see them ultimately getting the result out of this. And I see Chivas lifting the Liga MX title, bro.
I see the same thing. I mean, Chivas have been so dynamic, so fluid from midfield up to offense. Their transition is great too. I think Paunovic has this team so well drilled. But beyond that, kind of like you said, that magic effect, because dude, Chivas are playing at such a high level right now, in my opinion. They're playing so well. There's so many different avenues for them to attack. And I think I mentioned that last week. You know, a lot of their players can dribble, but they can also combine nice, tight little passes. But then you have players like Alvarado with something crazy out of his hat and can do a perfect through ball to a striker like Cisneros. There's so many different ways that Chivas can attack. And then you have fullbacks like Chiqueta Rosco and Alan Mozo. I just see Chivas as the completely better team. What's interesting, though, is if you're Tigres, if you're Robert Dante Siboldi, for as stressed as he's been this entire playoff season, I think he actually got the tactics right against Monterrey in that second leg. That's the only thing I'll give Tigres, is not even the players themselves, but actually the coach, because he actually went completely defensive, man. He took off Fulgencio. I think that might have been forced, but Diego Lainez, neither. Took off his starting wingers. El Diente Lopez also on the bench. He puts Garza on, who has not played in the playoffs this year yet. Starts him. And then he has Fernando Gorriarán, who's kind of coming off of an injury, but he puts him out wide. Not even a winger. He's more of a midfielder. He brings in Carioca as well, and then he drops Guido Pizarro into a center back position. So you have like 3 holding midfielders, a center midfielder as a wide guy, and then not even a real winger in Garza. It's a crazy tactic. It's so defensive, but it worked against Monterrey because that was their tactic. Just hit him. Yeah. Go at him. And then let's get lucky with Gignac Córdoba. Yeah. And it worked. And the thing is, in the second half, you can then bring on Lainez. You can bring on Quiñones. You can bring on Lopez, Fulgencio. So if there is a way to win for Tigres, it's start as defensive as you can, because Chivas' offense is so much better than yours. And if you try to go toe-to-toe with Chivas, I think Chivas will break you down. So Tigres have an avenue to win here, but they have to go defensive. Even if that happens, though, my technical pick is Chivas de Guadalajara winning their 13th title. But here's the thing, man, and I just want to make this very official here. I hate that I have to do this. I hate this. But I think Tigres are actually going to win it.
No, you don't.
I do.
No, you don't, bro.
No, yes, I do.
No, you don't.
I do. My technical pick on paper is Chivas. My emotional pick, and I do mean this. This isn't a joke.
Yeah.
I truly do think what is going to happen, and I can't explain with football terms until it happens.
Okay.
I think Tigres are going to win it.
The roles have reversed. Where America was a more tactical team. I saw a different angle of hope and ultimate result. And now you're telling me that Chivas is the better team going into this match?
They are.
But you just see Tigres lifting the trophy at the end of the day.
Yeah, and I can explain in due time once it's done. That's all I can really say.
Here's what I wonder, man. You think about legacies. You think about the history that both these clubs have in Liga MX. Yeah. 2 equipos grandes, Chivas and Tigres. Chivas pursuing their 13th trophy. Tigres pursuing what? Their 8th? Yeah, their 8th. So a good amount of fucking trophies there. But when you think about what it could mean for either club to win a trophy, what it would mean for them and for their fans and for their people, before I get into that, I want to bring up something that happened before the podcast existed. Back in the days when Soltero and Reynoso were friendly foes, and we would just skip around and talk football for fun without the responsibility of producing content with it. And I remember back in 2017, after Chivas won their title and defied all odds and expectations, you looked at me and you said, and I quote, "Chivas will not win a title for the next 10 years." Thing is, you had said that a year before.
A semester before.
And you were,
I said it a semester.
You were off.
6 months before.
So you,
I was just off.
A semester. But you moved the goalposts. Right? Did you not? Did you not? You moved the goalposts. Yeah. And so, okay. And so,
by an inch.
I can play.
10 years, 6 months is an inch.
I'll play along. All right. We move it over one semester. Starting after Chivas won the trophy in 2017, you said for the next 10 years, Chivas will not be crowned champions.
Right.
That was a take rooted in, I believe, just hate. But there's apparently more to it than what
there's more to it.
you.
There's more to it.
Chivas is in this final now against Tigres with an opportunity to completely trash that take that you had, to completely back my passion and support I have for this team. And not just that, but to cement themselves as equals with America, their biggest rivals when it comes to total title count. And when you think about that in other leagues, bro, that really doesn't exist. Barcelona, Real Madrid, despite them being two massive clubs, there's a clear gap in which team has won more. We have a league here in Mexico where there's a genuine chance to equal the total title amount, and it could happen this week, bro, with Chivas defeating Tigres. And on the other side, Tigres would love to have this trophy to just accrue more, to just gain more confidence, gain more history to their name, to get ultimately even with the Chivas and Americas of the world. That's what's on the line for them as well. So both of these teams are fighting for something truly, truly important. And you add that undertone of that take you have, of that ultimate disgust, I believe, to interpret as that you have for Chivas.
Absolutely.
And we have ourselves an amazing final. We have it, bro. And we already, folks already know who I'm gonna go for. They already know who I got winning tactically. Absolutely. And on just passion, fucking vibe shit. Yeah. I got Chivas winning this, man, and I feel good about it. I feel confident, and I want to see us win it against the same folks we won it against in 2017, and against one man who has terrorized every single Liga MX club that exists, André Pierre Gignac. I don't give a fuck how old this fucker is, bro. I don't give a fuck if he's in a goddamn wheelchair. If we're playing against him, I want nothing but failure for him, bro. Yeah. And we're going to see that happen this week, bro.
I hope so. I just want to put it out there. I hope Chivas win. I just don't think they will. Despite all that you've said. But the billing for it is insane, man.
Billing's insane.
It's insane.
Yeah.
Actually, I think that's it. I don't know if I have anything else to add, man. You set it up perfectly.
Yeah. You go or I go?
Where are we going?
I think the second most important story for the Give and Go right now, Dortmund has a chance to win the title.
Okay, let's go there.
Dortmund, I repeat, has a genuine chance to win the title. Up 1 point on Bayern right now. Yeah. One final game to go. With the result that they got this past weekend against Augsburg, 3-0, they have now positioned themselves to win the Bundesliga for the first time in over 10 years due to Bayern losing 3-1 to Leipzig. Dortmund faces off against Mainz, and Bayern will face off against Cologne. Does Dortmund bottle the league this time around the same way they've done in so many past years? Or will we see for the first time in so long Dortmund actually lift up the Bundesliga title after all the criticism we've thrown towards that league and the lack of parity? Is it finally going to happen, dude?
They have to. Like, this is it. I don't think there's ever been a more golden chance to do it because they've been given this opportunity by Bayern. Bayern have said, we don't want the league. What's crazy, though, is that they've both handed each other the title like 3 separate times this season. There's been times when Bayern have it, and then they lose, Dortmund take it, and then Dortmund immediately give it back to Bayern. It's been a crazy just back and forth between these two powerhouses in Germany. But to kind of go off what you said, that away game against Augsburg that Dortmund just played was Dortmund's biggest away game in the last 10 years. that crazy?
That's insane.
Because Bayern had lost the previous day. Dortmund knowing we win this game, the title is literally in our hands. All we have to do is put the signature on it in the last match day, and it's ours.
Yeah.
So it's crazy. And 3-0, as it should have been. But that's the thing. I think both teams are facing similar prospects, mid-table type of teams that are feisty, right? That can do some damage. I'm not saying they're completely weak, but both teams should win. No matter what, though, if that happens, Dortmund are German champions.
Thing is, Dortmund does have to win because I think I looked at the goal differential. Bayern has the advantage, so anything less than a victory and Bayern winning will end up seeing Bayern lift the trophy once again for what would be the 11th year in a row, dude.
It'd be so bad.
11 in a row. What's the overall scope, though, on Bundesliga with what's been a Bayern team that has been insane this whole season? Part of me thinks that the board is punching themselves in the head, bro, slapping themselves with the firing of Nagelsmann, because at that moment in time, they were still in good position of the league, and they go on to lose in the Champions League, in the cup tournament, the domestic cup tournament, and now the league itself. This would be one of the ultimate catastrophes I've seen Bayern have ever, and it would be at the hands of their own management because of the coaching decisions they made mid-season, man.
That's what's crazy is the take that we had 2 months ago where I said, like, this might be the biggest shot in the foot ever done by a big club within such a short period of time. What boggles my mind about this is that it still stands 2 months later because Bayern have not fixed anything. It's actually maybe even gotten worse. And that's what shocks me is that for a club as stable and as sure of themselves as Bayern Munich, for them to have not figured it out by this point is completely shocking to me. I'm truly surprised because they have the personnel, they have the coach in Thomas Tuchel, but also they have the support, whether it's financial or just verbally from the board. If you're a coach, if you're a player, you have that support system. And Bayern Munich cannot figure it out, man, because, look, I'll be honest, even 2 months ago when they were still struggling, Dortmund were weirdly struggling too. So it was still up to Bayern to just be like, all right, let's just take the title now. But they didn't do it. And they've had mistake after mistake after mistake, with the worst one being at home against RB Leipzig, a great team unto themselves. But for Bayern to be at home with 2 games left, knowing that just to win the game and the title's theirs, for them to lose 3-1, 2 of them were penalties, I understand that. But still, it's pretty crazy that Bayern have not figured it out. It's a site that I'm completely unfamiliar with. I'm not even kidding, bro. Like, the 14 years I've watched football, I've never seen a Bayern this unsure of themselves, this uncertain as to what type of way they're going to play and what type of result they're going to get, even against their fellow German sides. And this is exactly what I want to see.
Okay, so ultimately, you will rejoice at the sight of Dortmund lifting the trophy.
But they have to, dude. If they don't, man, I'm going to go to a dark place.
I'm
going to go to a really dark place.
You still seem a little uncertain that it's going to happen.
I'm still uncertain, bro, because it's transferred so much between these two teams. Because if Dortmund were just really consistent, not even like Manchester City or Arsenal type of consistent, they would have won this league already. No. And they haven't. So I'm still concerned that something crazy is going to happen and Bayern somehow get their 11th title. I'm not confident, but I know that this is their best chance. If that makes sense.
It's crazy to me that Bayern has been this bad and they still have actually a pretty good chance of still winning the title. If Borussia Dortmund ties, it's fucking theirs.
It's over.
And it's crazy for that quality of team to be crowned as a German champion after all they've gone through this season and the way that they've played and how unconvincing they looked at times. It'd be embarrassing, bro. And Dortmund themselves barely edging out Bayern as well, man. Given, I don't know, this might not even be the best Dortmund team in the past 10 years, but it's enough. It's enough to win the title. So I'll be happy to see Dortmund, to see a guy like Jude Bellingham lift the title, to see guys like Emre Can, Marco Reus finally lifting that Bundesliga title. The images will be beautiful to see on the final day. Definitely the most exciting top 5 European League finish that we're going to see this season because all the others have been finished and realized. So that is something to keep an eye on, and hopefully we'll be rejoicing next week when it comes to this result. Where the result has been defined, though, and where I want to just get your quick thoughts on is over in England.
Oh, yeah.
Just real quickly, man.
Yeah.
Manchester City have been crowned champions for the third season in a row. Pep Guardiola winning 5 of the last 6 titles available to him in England. Erling Haaland, Starboy, 36 goals so far, lifting the title. De Bruyne, Jack Grealish, Julian Alvarez, all these players lifting the title. Manchester City is embarking upon their treble winning campaign, and they knocked out the first obstacle in their way, which was the Premier League, and now all they have left is the FA Cup final against Manchester United and the Champions League final against Inter Milan. Just want to get your thoughts.
Yeah, no, I mean, congratulations to Manchester City. I stopped watching the Prem once they beat Arsenal, and I'm not even kidding, because that defeat was so demoralizing from an Arsenal perspective. I was like, there is no way they bounce back from that, because that's like you go your entire season doing the best that you can, and then knowing that, okay, a loss here is going to make it this really difficult. They're going to go above us, and then they would have just proved to us that they're better than us, and that's exactly what happened. So I knew that City would not falter after beating Arsenal, and I knew that Arsenal would not somehow find it within themselves to win every game remaining since then. 3-0 loss to Brighton, losing to Nottingham Forest this weekend 1-0. Yeah, they're done. Arsenal have been done.
Yeah.
And that's just down to the insane ability of Manchester City to just defeat anybody, because they embarrassed Arsenal on the day, and Arsenal themselves have not recovered from that loss.
Yeah, I think I've looked elsewhere for better stories in the Premier League after that matchup happened, because I think there's 2 really amazing stories that we have to look back on and give credit to. The first one being Newcastle, man. Officially, after today, qualified for their first Champions League in 20 years, man.
That's crazy.
That's almost my entire life, dude. Newcastle will be back in the Champions League, and I think it's going to be amazing. I think this team can definitely age itself, can definitely transition well over the offseason. If anything, they might even get better during the offseason, and they won't be one of those teams that had a good season, gets to the Champions League, and completely falters because they end up losing players, because of the funds they have behind them, because of the rise they've been on this past year with new management coming in. This team is star-studded with an amazing defense as well, and they deserve all the credit, because the Premier League is ruthless. As we've seen, the Premier League is very, very tough, and they finished it in 3rd place, dude, with the UEFA Champions League spot secured.
Yeah, dude, that's actually a really good point, because when you look, I remember almost 10 months ago now, we and everybody involved in football did a preview as to who would finish in the top 4. I don't think a single person, a pundit or influencer, had Newcastle in the top 4.
Yeah.
This is the story of the Premier League by far. But when you look at how it's been done, dude, what a fun team. What a really fun team. Out and out wingers, really good striker up top with Callum Wilson. But then beyond that, a January transfer window signing, Alexander Isak.
Yeah.
And he came into the team like nothing. Like he'd been there for 2 years already. What a perfect signing. And then, of course, you have guys like Joe Ellington really coming through this season, playing really good level of football. And then alongside him, Brazilian compatriot Bruno Guimaraes doing so well this season too. And then defensively, Nick Pope at the back, I think, has been a revelation this year between the sticks. There's so much to like about this Newcastle side, and it only makes sense that they're one of the best teams in the Premier League. When you do that relative comparison, compare them to anyone below them, and you're like, oh yeah, Newcastle's better. But it's just crazy to think about, because, dude, I didn't think that they'd be able to reach this level of consistency that they've maintained for this entire season. I'm really impressed by them, and you're right. I remember when Leicester won the league, right? They got Champions League qualification, but there was always that idea of, they're going to lose 3 to 4 of their best players. And that's exactly what happened going to the Champions League next year. They do all right. They do all right.
They
did all right, but they were never going to be that good. But for Newcastle, I feel like they're going to be able to keep the majority of their players. And I think they'll need to add in the offseason to be truly competitive. If they're able to do that, I think Newcastle's going to be very scary in the Champions League if you're a non-Premier League team, bro.
Pretty cool, man.
Because you're going to have no idea how to play them, first of all.
Yeah.
You've never been to St. James's Park. Like, when was the last time Real Madrid played there, bro? Like, that's crazy. Yeah. And so just even that prospect alone is going to be so foreign for a lot of these other European teams. And then you couple in the idea that this Newcastle team is truly talented. I'm very excited. But I do think they need to bring in some additions because, in big games, for example, against, let's say, Manchester City or Manchester United, I definitely see some weaknesses in this Newcastle side. But very, very happy that they've been able to finish third place.
Yeah, they've been able to infiltrate the famous Premier League top 6. And I think there has to be a conversation about this, man, because there's 2 newcomers in this top 6 with Newcastle. And then to me, the second greatest story, to many people, the best story in the Premier League, Brighton. Brighton this season has sustained the success that they were able to have under Graham Potter. They've continued it with Roberto De Zerbi coming in from Sassuolo and has proven to be just a tactical genius and to just carry that legacy that Graham Potter had specifically at Brighton, and has carried this team to a European spot, bro. The first time in their history that they've achieved such success. Crazy. And he does it in his first year with the squad that I just think is pure magic, man. Purely magical. And opposite of what I believe with Newcastle, I do fear that I do think they're going to get picked apart a little bit, man, going into the next season. So, granted, they will be in the Europa League next season.
Right.
A competition that, if they can make some purchases in the offseason, which they've already been active in transfers so far. I think they made like 3 signings somehow. If they can continue just playing that Brighton style of football, bringing in new talents, under-the-radar players like a Julio Enciso, for example, shining, giving them time to develop and to just showcase their talent on the biggest stage, Brighton could be a contender in the Europa League, man. But beyond that, we just need to focus on the present and the fact that they are in a European tournament, man. And not just that, they have infiltrated the Premier League top 6 as well.
Yeah, no, they've been phenomenal this year, man. They're so fun to watch, but you're right. It's that Brighton style of play at this point. But, man, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. I'm scared for this team in the offseason, man. I'm scared. If you lose Moises Caicedo, Alexis McAllister, or Mitoma, it's over. That's the bloodline of this team. You take out even one of them, I think you're going to have a huge miss in what could come for the success of this team in the future. But the thing is, I only see at least one of them leaving, bro.
Yeah.
How are they? If they're able to keep all 3 of those players that I just listed going into the next season, if they're able to truly keep them, like, as in they're happy to stay and not like a transfer just didn't fall through, I'll be genuinely surprised. And I just don't think it's going to happen, man. But if Brighton can somehow do it, then yeah, I think they can be incredibly competitive. And, maybe they just keep up their insane run of scouting. Maybe they let go of Mitoma, but then they bring in the next best Asian player, and he just pops off the same way. Their track record is incredibly impressive, so I wouldn't be surprised by it. And Cisso's been able to really come into himself this year under De Zerbi too, and that was a signing that they made like a year and a half ago. And it took that long to actually come to fruition. So maybe there's other hidden gems within that Brighton youth squad waiting to be unleashed next season. But, I'm always going to err on the negative side as far as like, letting go of a hard starter. Like Trossard, man, when he left, I was so bummed because Trossard lost to his former team 3-0 a week ago.
Oh, shit, yeah.
Yeah, and that's just like, fuck you, man. you left for nothing at the end of the day. Like, you're playing bench minutes, and even Trossard at his best, and I said this before, even Trossard at his best is never going to satisfy Arteta right now. He's always on the bench, only gets starting minutes as scraps, whereas he could have been the star, and he was, at Brighton, a team who are just flying right now for considering the financial status that they have. So, yeah, I'm so impressed by this Brighton team. And, yeah, I'm so curious to see what they do because it could go either or for me, whether it's full success or full failure. Maybe even De Zerbi leaves, bro. There's a chance.
Yeah, I could see it. I could see it, too.
Like, their team's needing coaches. He's really put himself out there as, like, a really good coach. I could see him leaving, too. So, like, there's just so many variables here.
I want to talk about the relegation situation in the English Premier League because a take that I've had forming for a very long time was the idea that this year we will not see a team that was promoted get relegated. And I want to read out the relegation standings as of right now. As of today, Monday, the 22nd of May, Southampton, 20th place. Yeah. They've been in the Premier League for a long time. It's their time to go for sure. 19th place, Leeds. Leeds United with 31 points, but still the possibility of getting out. Leicester in 18th. 31 points with the possibility of getting out. That's 3 teams that have been established in the Premier League for at least 2 years.
With Leeds, Leeds kind of ruined that.
But then in 17th, Everton, 33 points. And then finally, a team that secured Premier League football for next season already with their victory this season over Arsenal, Nottingham Forest.
Yeah.
It has been mathematically confirmed. The teams that get relegated this year will be teams that were already in the Premier League and that did not get promoted this year.
Yeah.
Celebrate, man.
I don't know, man. I was actually thinking about that more specifically towards Southampton, considering they're the bottom of the league. And, you know, I went back because I remember seeing Southampton, and obviously they had players like Sadio Mane. Jay Rodriguez at the time was really good. Adam Lallana, too.
Yep.
There was true talent within that Southampton team when they first came up, and they slowly, but ever so slowly, got picked apart by the bigger teams in England. And look what that has led to. Relegation. It's really sad when you think about it because, bro, Southampton, their best finish was 6th place.
Really?
Isn't that insanely high?
Yeah, a win.
6th place.
You know
It was
what?
like 2013, 2014?
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like maybe their second or third year.
Ah, they must have thought
Yeah, bro.
something else was going to be their future, bro.
And that's what I think about when I see Brighton now. And so that's why I'm not like too hyped on Newcastle and Brighton doing what they're doing because it's first off, it's amazing to get there, but to maintain it.
Newcastle will maintain it.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I hope so. But to maintain is incredibly difficult because then from that point on, it was 10th place finish, 12th place finish, 16th. Okay, let's flirt with 17. Let's not get relegated.
Yeah.
Oh, 14th. Okay, we're okay.
Yeah.
20th.
Yeah.
It's tough. And it's actually like, it really shows you, Southampton's story specifically, the harshness of relegation.
Yeah.
Because you can have an incredible season where you're in the top 6 in the Premier League, and then you just get slowly picked apart, finances happen, narratives, and now you're in the championship.
Sheffield United was like that a couple years ago, too.
Yeah.
Top 6 finish, I believe, or at least top 8.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
yeah. Sheffield had a really good year. But for me, it's more like frustrating for Southampton because you had tenure in the Prem. Sheffield didn't. You know, it's the same thing with Leeds. Leeds were phenomenal in their debut year. Sophomore year, we saw their weaknesses, and then this year, I think they're probably going to be relegated because they ultimately weren't good enough. Southampton proved they were good enough. You know, they've been in the league for almost 10 years, if not 10 years. And so that's tenure. And now they lose it. They get sacked, essentially. And it seems so unfair. But it's also oddly the beauty of relegation and promotion. Because then you can bring in new life like Luton Town, for example, Coventry City,
Yes, sir.
to give them that same story. And maybe it's different for them. Maybe they last for 20 years. Like, you never know. So it is kind of like a beauty of like life and death. It just sucks because sometimes your lifespan's really short in the Prem. And if thinking that it's going to be a lot longer, I think can be really just depressing, bro.
Yeah.
Like if I'm a Southampton fan, I'll be upbeat and like, okay, we can do well in the championship, but bro, I'm gonna miss like seeing the lineup and being like, okay, we got City this week, we got Everton this week,
Yep.
you know, we've got Liverpool. Oh, we're gonna host fucking Arsenal in December. I can't wait to catch that game. They're not gonna have that anymore, bro. Like it's gone. Hopefully they can come back. I mean, Norwich just topples back and forth,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Maybe
yeah.
Southampton can be the same, but honestly, when I look at it, I actually get pretty depressed.
I don't know. I'm the opposite here.
I know, I can tell, man. You're
marveling. This to me, the way I interpret what the Premier League has shown me this season is the importance of a manager, and not just that. We just received a managerial masterclass from the promoted teams. Crazy fact: the 4 teams that I mentioned that are battling for relegation all had their coach fired mid-season.
Yeah.
Each single one of them. The teams that stayed or the teams that were promoted, Gary O'Neill with Bournemouth, and then Marco Silva with Fulham, and finally Steve Cooper with Nottingham Forest.
Yeah.
We're here to see out their projects from back when they were in the championship. An incredible just display of coaching prowess to me, man,
Absolutely.
because we marvel at what a guy like Pep Guardiola has done, right, with the top teams, and Jurgen Klopp, for example, or whoever's up there, you know, managing, fighting for the title. But contextually, what these guys have done for their clubs and how much effort and work they put into keeping them up is comparable to what Pep Guardiola has done and the work that he's put in to achieve so much success. Granted, it's just seen differently because they're fighting their title, their championship is simply not getting relegated, whereas Pep Guardiola's goal is to win a fucking treble. Right? It's a different fucking conversation,
Absolutely.
but the amount of the amount of mental work and mental overload that you're going through in an entire season deserves credit given how easily managers are sacked nowadays, and the fact that Everton, Leicester, Leeds, Southampton all saw their coaches get fired midway through the season, replaced, and then still not see success. Well, that's something to be proud of, man. That's something really fucking good. And that's not something we see often in the Premier League, man. We don't see that often. Sometimes we'll get 2 out of 3 teams that stay, 1 out of 3 teams. But this season might be the first one that I've seen in recent memory where all 3 stay up. And not just that. You got Nottingham Forest, who was in the 16th, Bournemouth in 15th, but then Fulham, 10th place.
Fulham are amazing.
10th place. And they could have been way better if Mitrovic hadn't received that crazy-ass ban that he received against Manchester United. So I'm proud. I'm proud of these lowly level teams showing out in one of the most expensive, if not the most expensive league in the world, and finding a way to stay up, man. And I'm also proud of myself for calling it.
No, absolutely. I think I'm really impressed with what Bournemouth have done specifically because they were the only ones who didn't really spend. Nottingham spent over £100 million to get where they're at today, and I think it worked. Yeah. That's the thing, though. It worked, thank God. Otherwise, they'd be in heaping debt. And then for Fulham, too, they were able to maintain the players that got them through the championship, and they were already really dynamic in general, but then they were able to really add to it, too. Their offense has been so fluid this season. I think Fulham deserved to be in the upper half of the table because they're a really good Premier League side. But for me, man, I'm so impressed with Bournemouth specifically because, dude, midway through the season, I was convinced that they were going to be relegated. Convinced. But you bring up a great point. What ended up happening was the teams that had more instability with their coaches ended up suffering. Because Bournemouth were able to find a way to just lock in, dig deep, and trust in each other and their coach, and it worked. Whereas you have a team like Leeds who's changed, 3 coaches now? Same with Southampton. And it's just getting worse every time they do it. So, yeah, that's actually a really good point that I didn't consider. The idea that, coaching changes really affected this season specifically.
Yeah.
Look at Chelsea, too.
Oh, yeah.
Chelsea is, almost that. It did not work out for them. Bayern Munich, to a certain degree as well. So, yeah, that's actually crazy that all 3 teams didn't change their coach. Even though at a certain point, it got kind of bad for both Nottingham and Bournemouth. Yeah. Wow, that's impressive.
And I think you look at, what gets me is you look at Everton and Leicester for me specifically, from those 4 teams I mentioned. Everton and Leicester, squad player by player, compared to what Bournemouth have, is better. I think they have a better squad.
Yeah.
Names, better value, better talent. But it all comes down to coaching. I think it really does. Steve Cooper and what he's done with Nottingham Forest, Gary O'Neill with Bournemouth, finding ways to get results, to grind results out. And what we saw this past weekend was incredible with Nottingham Forest winning at home against what once was a title contender in Arsenal and doing it in such a fashion where they look like the better team the whole game. Incredible, man. And just incredible to see that. And, hey, we got some newcomers coming into the Premier League this upcoming season as well.
Yeah.
So
that'll be dope.
It'll be dope, man. Since we're kind of on a little bit of a crusade right now, going
European tour.
Yeah, we're going league to league, kind of closing things out. Let's go to La Liga, brother. Right? Let's go to La Liga. We haven't said a word about Barcelona being crowd champions, man. Granted, we knew this for about 3 months.
It's been a while. Yeah, man.
We knew it for 3 months. But Barcelona, crown champions of La Liga, winning the title. Xavi's first La Liga title with this team. The Xavi project looking good so far in terms of the league itself. Europe, we'll talk about that later. But for now, Barcelona won the title in a year where Real Madrid ultimately ended up falling very short. And where your very own Atletico Madrid have now positioned themselves to be second place above Real Madrid. Does that matter?
For me, ultimately, no, because we had such a poor season in Europe. Really bad, man. I mean, we couldn't beat Club Brugge.
I wonder, though, if folks in Madrid, if Atletico Madrid fans and Real Madrid fans in Spain right now, if that matters, finishing above them in the table.
No, I love the idea of it. I love beating Madrid, and the fact that we've ultimately had the better finish to the season the last 4 months is nice. It's like a little ego boost. But I'm bigger picture, I'm really disappointed with how this whole season has spanned out in Spain in general, though. And that's what I'm like. So, yeah, it kind of matters that we leapfrogged Madrid, but that's more just like a personal like stake. From a club perspective, overall, I still think Atlético's and Madrid, too, have a lot of questions to answer, dude. Like, seriously, even though Atletico have been really good at the end of the season, I still have questions on can we actually compete against really good teams in Europe? And I think it's just going to be a little tough because ultimately I still think we have to replace a guy like Joao Felix, right? Yes, we do have a high-flying Antoine Griezmann, but I'm going to start getting a little worried that his age might start playing a factor just at the highest level. Can we really trust Morata to be our number 9? Morata has been our number 1 striker for the last 6 years. And he's been on loan like twice. Isn't that crazy? Like every time he comes back, we're like, all right, Morata, we need you. Like, but that's the reality of it because we have not found an actual number 9 since Diego Costa left back in 2015 or 2016. It's been that long. And then when you look at the wingers, we're still using pretty much the same guys. Thomas Lemar from when he came from Monaco. And then when you look at players like Marcos Llorente, obviously he was great in that COVID year, and he's still a really solid player. But I just feel like we need a new influx of players, just in general, to kind of bring more competition to the side that already exists in Atletico, but to also just give us more oomph. More offensive threat against non-Spanish teams. Because I think in general, right now, Atletico's in a space where we can pretty much guarantee we'll finish in the top 3. Even though I thought we had a really poor start to the season for like the first 6 months, look where we are now. But that's because we have the ability, we have the talent in our squad. But oddly enough, even though I think a second place finish would be competitive in other leagues, I don't think it actually means a lot when I look at the other European teams that are out there. So I just think we need new players. We need to fix some of our offensive threats. Correa's also just another player that we've had for so long.
Players,
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I'm fresh players.
I'm listing the same players that we've had for the last 6 years, and they've been amazing. But we need freshness. We need something that'll actually change our dynamic and our fluidity going forward. Yannick Carrasco too.
Mitoma?
There you go. That's exactly what I'm saying. Something like that, bro. Like Yannick Carrasco. He was our best player in 2016. He's still one of our best starters that we have out on the wings.
That's disgusting.
It's 7 years later.
Damn, dude.
Right. No, and he's fantastic.
Yeah,
but I think for the setting, when you reach out, when you play Madrid, when you play Barcelona, which, by the way, we were not good against this season, and when you play against teams like Bayer Leverkusen or other teams that are solid within their own respective leagues, I get worried for Atletico. So, yeah, second place is great, but only, and I mean only within Spain. And I'm trying to think bigger here.
Yeah.
I feel like Atletico needs to do a lot more. But it's great, for example, that Griezmann is playing at such a high level because if we can pair him with a Diego Costa that he once had, or if we can pair him with just another really good winger, then I think we'll have a lot of success. But that's the thing. I think it really does rely on our off-season transfers, which has not been good, I'd say, for the past like 3 years.
It's tough to trust that Atletico board too, man.
It's tough.
They'll splash cash some seasons, and then other ones they'll just be completely silent.
Silent, bro. Like, we legitimately did not have an off season this past one. Like, we didn't do anything. We just, we got players back on loan, and then we said, all right, let's try this.
Yeah.
And it works in Spain, but we were atrocious in UEFA, dude. Atrocious.
Now, with Barcelona, I want to make a point of this. It was last year after the Champions League final when Real Madrid won. We were talking pretty confidently about how Real Madrid would probably dominate La Liga for the next 5 years because Barcelona was in such a bad spot at the end of last season, and Real Madrid was European champions once again and league champions as well. So I feel like because it's been a slow burner, because we've already known for so long that Barcelona was going to win the league because of the lead they took, it's kind of gone under the radar. To me, how impressive it has been, the rebuild that they've gone through, specifically, like you said, with Atletico, within La Liga. Because in Europe, I don't think it's happened. But in La Liga specifically, Real Madrid ultimately was not able to provide the same sort of fight that they had these past couple of years. And Barcelona took advantage of that. And they really found a way to key in on the league and play with one of the best defenses we've seen within Spain, conceding, I believe, only 13 goals across the entire season.
Yeah.
Does this not excite you? Does it not like I don't know, like is this is it kind of like
man.
is there not much depth to this trophy? Is there not much behind it outside of just Barcelona beating the teams in Spain, but the teams in Spain right now just not being that good?
I think this is going to sound so bad. I think Barcelona bought this cup, essentially. They bought this title. And here's exactly what I mean by that. Rafinha, Ferran Torres, Robert Lewandowski. Those are 3 guys that they just added to their squad this year. Rafinha, Brazilian winger starter.
Yeah.
Robert Lewandowski, one of the greatest European strikers in the last 10 years.
Yes, sir.
And then Ferran Torres, a really good player. Probably better than 95% of other La Liga wingers.
Yep.
That's just three players, right? Then you bring in a guy like Frank Kessie you can bring off the bench, and then you still have experience in, for example, Busquets, who's still a phenomenal midfielder. And then you have the youth that you brought in a couple of years ago, Pedri and Gavi, going off. For me, Barcelona bought this one. But to not sound as harsh, Xavi's brought them all together. Absolutely. I'm not going to discredit what Xavi has done because he still has to manage all of that ego and then figure out who exactly he wants to start. Because I remember at the beginning of the season, I thought Frank Kessie was going to take over Busquets because of Busquets' age. Xavi ultimately decided that Busquets is the better player, which actually is probably the truth, and he's stuck with Busquets. And that's a Xavi decision, bro. That's not someone speaking into his ear saying, hey, can you start Kessie because we just brought him to the team?
Yeah.
He didn't. He could have done that, but he didn't. He always picked the best 11 that he could. And the thing is, it's a really talented 11. My biggest problem, the reason why I'm not really excited about this Barcelona, goes back to my original take. How many of these players are actually here for the long run? And that's why I'm being a little harsh here, because is Rafinha going to stay here for a while, or did they just bring him in to win a title and then they're going to offload him so they can bring in Messi?
That's the feeling I get.
I feel
right. They're going to offload a lot of them to get, because they have to.
They have
to get
to.
Messi in there.
And even if you don't bring in a guy like Messi, I feel like they have to offload at least 1 or 2 of their starters to create space. There was a rumor that Gavi was going to have to go to Chelsea so Barcelona can have money. And that's just what gets me all feeling bad about this Barcelona situation, because I just don't know what the team is going to look like even 12 months from now. And because that's the thing. Is Messi going to come this summer?
Yeah,
that's
going
to
to
change a lot, man.
Yeah.
Whether it's good or bad, the squad is going to change because you're going to have to offload several starters just to even facilitate that transfer.
But I think the thing is, I feel like Barcelona's kind of gambling here. Like,
yeah,
if they can get Messi, it'd be like putting duct tape over like a completely broken down home, but it keeps that home up.
It keeps it up,
and it would ultimately make it look like a fucking house. It would make it look like it was the plan all along, like it was the idea that they wanted to pursue this entire time. If they end up pulling Messi back into Barcelona to finish his career there and to retire there, I think that's kind of like the illusion that they're setting themselves up for, and it could end up working out for him, is what's crazy. But as of right now, it looks kind of just all over the place. It looks messy, no pun intended, because they don't really know where to go.
They don't know where to go.
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of confusion with the board, and I'm interested to see what their offseason is going to look like. One of the most interesting teams this summer is going to be Barcelona, because I want to know, are they going to spend more money? Are they going to offload a lot of players? Is it purely bringing in transfers and keeping the players they have now and finding a way to finagle that financially?
Yes.
What's going to happen for Barcelona this summer? Because it could end with Messi being a part of the squad, or it could end with like 3 players leaving and just a few replacements coming in.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I just saw a report a couple of weeks ago that Barcelona are trying to activate another financial lever to give them a couple hundred more million euros. If that's true, then that could change also a lot of different things about the transfer window. But it goes back to my original point, is even when they do that, and they've done that literally last year, La Liga still has a problem with it. And they still, send them fines or send them warnings about, hey, figure your financial books out. So I'm caught in purgatory here.
Yeah.
Do I trust Barcelona's finances to actually be stable enough to keep this title-winning squad for the next 5 years? Because if they do, man, then yeah, Barcelona can build on this. And they can be a really good team under Xavi's coaching. But if they're going to have to get rid of a winger here, let go of Pedri or Gavi just because they have to, bring in an old Messi, and then have to deal with his retirement 2 years later, I I don't know if I can really trust this team. But one thing I can definitively say is all the players that they have brought in, they are the best team in La Liga. I can say that without a doubt. They're better than Atletico. They're better than Real, Valencia, Villarreal, Real Sociedad. They're better than any other team. But when you look at their sheer quality on paper, I think it's very apparent as to why. But when I look at teams who are really successful in Europe, it's chemistry. It's teams who are sure of themselves, not just like with each other, but like with their like family life, like with their like life within the city.
Like an identity.
An identity.
Yeah, I don't know if Barca has that.
I don't know if they have an identity yet. And if there's an idea that one of your players like might be offloaded, not because they weren't good enough, but because the club just has to let them go, then that worries me from just like a stability perspective. Because the best teams in Europe don't have that problem. And I think Barcelona have that problem. So that's why I'm not hyped about this Barca team.
No, that's fair. That's completely fair, man. And kind of along those lines of frustration towards La Liga, man. A very serious situation happened this weekend with Vini Jr. Facing insane amounts of racism.
So bad.
Racism that has been directed at him time and time again, man. In La Liga specifically. I saw it firsthand when I went to the Mallorca match. The way that he gets heckled, it's almost like a little too much. And I know that people say that you got to be able to take that shit, but it almost seems like it's personal towards him because of the color of his skin. And you can see with the players too, like it's weird how physical so many opponents that Real Madrid faces in the league, how physical and personal they get with Vini at times. Like they have a personal agenda against him, man. And this game that they had this past weekend against Valencia, I think showed both the effects of that with the players and the fans as well. Vini showing some frustration unlike any that I've seen before, pointing out the fan that was being racist towards him in the stands, pleading to the ref to please back him up, to please be on his side, to please defend him in this very tough situation for him, and ultimately not getting that backing, bro. Not from the ref or from La Liga itself. Going so far as going on Instagram and showing his love that he's had for La Liga, the way that league has hosted players such as Messi, Ronaldo, Ronaldinho, and these people that he's looked up to, but feeling that it's changed, feeling that they, at the end of the day, choose the fans over the players, and feeling that they ultimately don't back him and don't defend him and don't fight against racism the way that he hopes that they would. And so it's a very tough situation for Vini. Fabrizio Romano has already reported that there's no change in his allegiance towards Real Madrid. None of that is at stake, but he does have a genuine frustration. And I think fans alike, such as myself, have a general frustration, not just towards La Liga, but I think it's European fans in general.
Yeah, it's so disappointing. And I think the problem is that, there's a lot of tradition in Europe. And it's actually really easy to observe if you're an outsider like us, because we don't live in it, we're not privy to it, we literally just get to observe it from thousands of miles away. And I think the problem is that at its core, soccer is very tribal, right? And so even pundits in Europe and officials alike will say, that's soccer, that's football, it's tribal, it's just inherent in the culture of the sport. The thing is, I think they take it too far in situations like this where a fan gets, way too aggressive, to the point where it's racial and just shouldn't even be said. But the thing is, I think at the end of the day, the European officials will be like, oh, this is tradition. Yeah. Like it's tribal. He's just, backing his team without even looking at what he's saying, right? And that's where the investigation needs to start happening is, what are they actually saying? Because if it is racial, then change needs to happen. Because there's a line between like being tribal and supporting your team versus like being racial, man.
Yeah, man.
There's a big line
and
there.
It's easy to avoid.
It's very easy to avoid. But I think Europe is so grounded in tradition that for some reason it gets clouded when in reality it just shouldn't.
Yeah, I think the officials of La Liga, whoever's in charge, feel that the task is like, if you want us to change the racist aspect of the league, you're asking us to change, right? Like history, like
that's
tradition.
What I'm saying. But it
shouldn't be that deep. It should just be like, bro, like stop the chance where they're saying really fucking racial shit. So, protect the players at the very least. Like do the bare minimum to make the players that make so much money for you and that generate so much fan and attention for your league. do the bare minimum to defend them in these situations. That's all Vini's asking for, man, because at the end of the day, it is tough to regulate so much of that hate. It's so hard to control thousands of people and what they say on the pitch, but if you can at the very least secure and protect the players and give them that confidence that they'll be okay, because it seemed to me that Vini at some point almost felt like he wasn't safe or felt that he was being attacked by such a massive mob. That's when I think it crosses a line. And overall, I think the as FIFA and as football has always said, there is zero room for racism, zero room, and that should be long. We should be long past this now, and it's a shame, bro. It's a shame that it's happening right now in Spain in La Liga, and that Vini has to be at the forefront of it. And likewise, other leagues, England, Italy, Germany as well. All these leagues have had it. I just think we need to move past it and we need to figure it out, man. And it's too rudimentary of a problem for it to even exist right now, man. Like we're in a much different place now. This is below us. There's no reason for this to continue happening, but Europe in general, I think, needs to take a big step forward towards defeating that. The Europa League final and the Europa Conference League final has been set.
Yep.
For context, the UEFA Champions League final is Manchester City against Inter Milan, English team versus Italian team. The Europa League final would be Sevilla, longtime winners and rulers of this tournament, facing off against Roma, Jose Mourinho's Roma, an Italian team facing off against the Spanish team. And then finally, Fiorentina, Soltero's Fiorentina against West Ham from the Premier League. An Italian team in every single final. But what I love about these matchups, man, is that it leaves the door open still for the possibility of 0 Italian teams winning these tournaments. And I will stand by my take now, folks. I still see Italy not lifting a single European competition trophy. And it starts with the Champions League, with Manchester City being Inter,
Right.
Sevilla defeating Roma, and finally West Ham defeating Fiorentina. Your thoughts?
What's crazy is that I actually could see Sevilla beating Roma, not based off of like in-game talent, but just based off of pedigree. We've talked about Real Madrid's legacy when they get to UEFA Champions League finals. Weirdly, and I mean weirdly, Sevilla might be the only team with pedigree in the Europa League. And is that crazy? Is it right? It's crazy because it's kind of a bad thing, because that means they're never good enough for the Champions League. Like never. But they're really good for Europa League. It's a weird place to be in, but a good one because you're winning trophies. But that's the thing. Sevilla have true pedigree here, man, and oddly enough, it actually might be enough to win it.
And it feels like the Sevilla fans are fine having that pedigree, man. They seemed hyped.
Oh, yeah.
In that semifinal matchup, like they're perfectly okay being the champions of the Europa League versus being like constantly in the Champions League.
Like even making quarterfinals.
Makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you get silverware, you get to celebrate a huge fucking final win. But I think it's gonna be tough against Roma. Yeah. I really do. If there is a team to beat Sevilla in a situation like this, I think it is Jose Mourinho's Roma, because they're just so stout, man. They're so organized. And the fact that Mourinho won the Conference League last year too, I think is going to play just a little bit of part here, in the sense that like Roma are on a mission here. You know, they haven't had the best season in Italy, but I do think it's because Italy has been pretty competitive, as I think said a couple of podcasts ago. But I think this is going to be honestly a really even matchup. I don't see one like clear victor over the other. If I had to say, I would actually back Roma just on the pitch. I think Roma would win it. But like I said, wouldn't be surprised if Sevilla pull out a win. I just wouldn't be surprised. Either way, I think it's going to be a really even final.
Yeah, I hate betting against Mourinho in finals.
That's the thing. I do think Roma are set to win this, but Sevilla can't do it.
I love the prospect, though, the matchup. Yeah, it's like betting against a Mourinho-led squad who is commonly known for not losing finals. Yeah. And a Roma team that's seeking history as well. Back-to-back European titles will be incredible for them.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
But then Sevilla, like we said, rulers of this tournament. I hate to go off topic, but real quickly, you got me thinking about that conversation of like, you know, being comfortable winning Europa League titles is better than, you know, losing out in the group stage of the Champions League. Mm-hmm. I heard someone bring up this conversation. I want to know your thoughts. Who had the better season? Arsenal, with the results that they've gotten, or Manchester United if they end up winning the FA Cup and the Carabao Cup? If they win the FA Cup, who had the better season, or what team would you rather support? And I'm hearing a lot of this comes down to like philosophy. It comes down to like your ideals. Are you a person that at the end of the day just values trophy?
Mm-hmm.
Or you're a person that values development and growth, I guess.
Development, yeah. Yeah, because when you look at Manchester United, they should have developed, in my opinion, further based off of the season they had last year. I thought they were built to have an even better season this year, so much so as like, finishing top 3 at the very least. They didn't have a bad season, but it wasn't the season I was expecting them to have. So development-wise, I think United have been good, but not great. Whereas when you look at Arsenal development, bro, it's been amazing. It's been incredible. I mean, they were top of the league for, 90% of it. It's incredible in what they've been able to achieve. And not even that. The football that they've played when they were at the top was phenomenal, bro. 2, 3, 4 goals, screamers a game. They were unstoppable at their height. Whereas United, in my opinion, didn't even get close to that this season, So that's true. This is down to philosophy because what do you value more? If United ended up getting 2 titles or even 1 and they go toe-to-toe with Manchester City, it could be a funner end to the season for United.
Yeah.
But is it overall a better season? That's tricky. That's really tricky, bro.
I need you to pick one.
Yeah, so if I'm a fan of either and I'm like, which one would I rather have?
Yeah. I'm going trophies. I'm going trophies, man. You just don't forget those. You don't forget those. I take that any day of the week. And 2 domestic trophies, especially one being against Manchester City. I'd love it.
I'm going Arsenal. I think Arsenal have had the better season. And again, it goes back to my point of when you look at their heights, who played the better football, in my opinion, I think Arsenal did. Who played the better football longer? I'd say, in my opinion, Arsenal did. But who were better in high-pressure situations? United, technically.
Yeah, that's it.
Technically. But I think I rate, overall, personally, I rate domestic leagues probably 10x.
Yeah,
10, maybe even like 20x over a domestic cup. So a second place finish in a domestic league, I think, is better than a domestic finals appearance, even a domestic finals win. So yeah, that's just my take though.
Yeah.
It's personal, like you said.
I heard a couple pundits respond to this question. Real Ferdinand said he'd rather the trophies.
Really?
Yeah, most players that played prefer the trophies. They're ultimate, but it makes sense from a player perspective too, because you just add more trophies to your resume. Like it becomes part of your career haul.
Okay,
versus a season where you just develop. At the end of the day, won't mean much for you in the grand scheme of things. I think that's why players went with that. But it's such a back and forth conversation. If you're a fan of a team, then yeah, you might want that Arsenal development and growth because who knows what the future might hold for them. Maybe next season they get 3 trophies or some bullshit.
Right.
But I think trophies are so hard to come by, man.
Yeah.
Especially as like Tottenham fans have been begging for just 1 for decades. To have 2, even if they're not of the greatest value.
Yeah.
I value that more than a really good season that ended with nothing.
Okay, that's actually a really good point, and one I didn't consider. The idea that at the end of the season, you actually get silverware. You're right. From a player perspective, man, yeah, that's huge. You get to put that on your resume. You'll remember that finals moment probably for the rest of your life because you'll be at Wembley, and you will have beaten the team that you face, go all the way to the finals. You get to lift and kiss that trophy. That's every player's
you
dream.
Got your family on the pitch.
Yeah,
like, come on,
man. Yeah, you're right. It
is tough.
Even if it's a league or a cup, that moment will be ingrained in your brain forever. That's so true. And it's a beautiful moment. The thing is for me, and the reason why I still don't back that is a team like Wigan Athletic can get to that same final. Whereas that same team of Wigan Athletic could never fight for a domestic league title. So when I look at rarity, that's why I value a league title over a league cup, because there is always that off chance, even though it's rare in itself, there's always that off chance that a team can go even to a semifinals or finals as well.
Yeah.
So that's why I value it more. But you're right, like player, like human, like if you're playing and if you're a fan of that exact team, cup all the way, bro. Cup all the way. I get it.
It's so crazy because if you just look. Like, if we were in the past and we just saw what happened this year and we just saw on paper, like, the results at the end of the season, we'd see Manchester United, Carabao Cup winner, FA Cup winner, Champions League spot.
Yeah.
Arsenal, second place in Prem, Champions League spot.
And that's it.
And that's it.
Okay,
And
yeah.
that's
different.
so crazy to me,
That's
like what
different.
that looks like, but I get it. I get your point completely.
Yeah.
It's a back and forth, man. It really is.
Yeah.
But back to it. Europa League final. You're backing Roma to win it.
I am.
I'm going to go Sevilla on this one. And then finally will be the Europa Conference League final with Fiorentina facing off against West Ham. What did you think about that game in Basel, man? What did you think?
Crazy game, dude. Absolutely crazy. Basel played the exact way that they've always played. And Basel are kind of like a paradox to me, because when you see them play, and I've seen them play since the round of 16 stage, every single one of their playoff games, they have no flair, dude. Realistically, they don't have a single player that can just take a player one-on-one from a static position and take them to the byline and do something crazy. But what they do have is resilience. Dude, they're relentless. Ndoye, Andy Diouf, Amdouni, they run the exact same pace for the entire 90 minutes. And that's exhausting if you're a defense trying to maintain that, to contain that. I'm so impressed by the athleticism that this Basel team possessed, because for 90 minutes, they don't stop. They're relentless, man. And that's exactly what they did. Fiorentina show up to their house, and they show up. If they make it an incredible game, but what do Basel do? They come from behind every single time. I think they came from behind in pretty much every single fixture, starting from the round of 16 stage. It's what they do, but the reason why they're so successful in it is because when their opponent tires, Basel don't. They just keep going at it. And then you have a guy like Jean-Kevin Augustin, whose main goal is to be physical, whose biggest point of attack is his pace. So when you add that all up together, you get a really physical and athletic Basel side, and then you can couple that with the finishing of ability of Amdouni, man, who had an incredible finish in this game, one-on-one with the keeper, but slots it home so coolly. And that's one of the biggest pros I can say about this Basel side is, yes, they're physical, yes, they're athletic, but dude, their clinical ability in front of goal, it's just as good as Manchester City, low key, but the clinicality specifically,
Just the clinicality. Just that.
It is just as good, and it is why they were literally go to the 128th minute against a better team in Fiorentina because of that. And when they lost, low-key I was kind of bummed because they deserved penalties. They deserved it, man. And here's the thing. Fiorentina deserved to win. Absolutely. But Fiorentina scored 2 goals in that game that were a little lucky, if I could say. Deserved, though, nonetheless, because Nico Gonzalez still had to put it through, and Fiorentina still had to finish their chances. I understand that. But, man, Basel were a little unlucky, man. Pelmar, I think, had a header where he cleared it, but for some reason, it just felt like right to a Fiorentina player. And there was another instance where the ball bobbled up against the player's midriff, and unfortunately, it bobbled the perfect way right to a Fiorentina player. I think it's a little unlucky for it to happen twice in the same match. And for Basel to respond every time, too, I think it's unlucky for them to not go to penalties. But, man, what a fucking game. Fiorentina gave everything. So did Basel. You could see at the end of the game, Fiorentina were just ecstatic that they were even going to get a result. And Basel were just distraught that despite all of the efforts that they had given, they couldn't push it to pens. What a match. I was exhausted after it because, dude, what a battle. It was a pure battle. Straight up battle.
It's crazy to me that happened on a Thursday.
Yeah.
You got to go through all that shit.
Crazy.
You got to work overtime on a fucking Thursday, man. These boys play their hearts out. It was a great game. It was insane how deep into stoppage time it went to, with a fan getting injured in the stands or something.
Yeah. It was a 10-minute stoppage.
Yeah. But the game ended up going the full length with Fiorentina coming out on top, proving me wrong, man. I thought Basel might be able to pull it off, and they almost did, but Fiorentina got the result. And thus, we have a matchup with Fiorentina and West Ham, the Premier League side, looking to acquire the biggest trophy in their history, dude. That's the beauty of the Europa Conference League, is that both Fiorentina and West Ham are vying for something that would be massive for their club's history. Yeah. West Ham, on the other hand, beating AZ Alkmaar away from home 1-0 and 3-1 on aggregate. They go to the final, and we have an English side facing off against an Italian team. And here's what I wanted to say about this matchup is I only see one winner. I really only do see one winner. And I know that Fiorentina has been playing well this whole season and that they deserve a trophy, but I don't think they deserve this one. They're scheduled to play in the Coppa Italia against Inter, I believe.
Okay.
They'll win the trophy then, man. They're not going to go home without any silverware this season, but I just think that the height that a team like West Ham can reach versus the height that a team like Fiorentina can, and the confidence I have that West Ham will be able to activate that in a final, I think is a little too much. To the point where if West Ham loses this matchup, I think it will be a complete embarrassment. I see them as the clear favorite. Not that it's a huge gap between them and Fiorentina, but I just think the market value of the team is too high. I think the excuses are way too little for a team like West Ham to lose a matchup against Fiorentina. I think despite how well Fiorentina can work as a team, the way that their chemistry can align itself with other players and how they can just fiddle out a result over 90 minutes or 120 minutes, I just think that West Ham has a better ability at the end of the day to create a more powerful combination of talent and skill on the ball that leads to results and leads to a victory. I think it ends with the Premier League side lifting a trophy this year in this tournament.
I think West Ham have a really good shot at defeating Fiorentina. But what I really like about this matchup is I think we have two different complete styles of football being played here. And we'll literally get to see which one is actually better. I think it is kind of rare when we get this opportunity because usually it's just big team against big team. You know, Manchester City against Bayern Munich. You know, at that point, it's not really about culture. It's about who has the better players and who has the better coach. Here, this is truly stylistic, in my opinion. West Ham play a very Premier League style of football, and Fiorentina are incredibly Italian, man.
That's true.
Incredibly. And one thing I'll give West Ham, though, is that Premier League ability to be incredibly gritty and very physical. That game against Alkmaar in the Netherlands, they won that game because they were defensively so much better than Alkmaar's offense could handle. Alkmaar, for as incredible as a season as they've had, they had one weakness. They can't dribble. Alkmaar is so Dutch that they only pass. No, seriously, when you watch that game, you'll notice that that's their weakness. West Ham built a wall. They built two, actually. 2 blocks of 4, and they just said, Alkmaar, penetrate us. Problem is with Alkmaar is they don't penetrate, they pass. And so when they got it out wide to Carlson or they got it out wide to Olsen or Broderberg or whatever his name is, I keep forgetting, they can't penetrate. They couldn't do it. And then their fullback penetration was pretty weak too with Kirkish, and the Japanese fullback Sugarawa just wasn't good enough. And West Ham looked pretty comfortable defensively, man. And then they got that late goal once Alkmaar were just going balls to the wall trying to get that equalizer, and they ultimately couldn't do it. So West Ham are incredibly physical, incredibly gritty when they need to be. And I think that can go a long way, especially in a final. If things don't go their way, they can at least rely on their defense to kind of show up, man, because they're just incredibly well organized at the back. And then you have a guy like Declan Rice right in front of that back line to just orchestrate the rest of the defensive midfield and then from there facilitate the rest of the offense. Declan Rice, in my opinion, is by far the best player on that team. Without him, I do think they would be lost because he's such a general in that midfield, coupled with the fact that he's so good on the ball. He rarely makes mistakes. And in a finals appearance, you might need a guy like Rice to just kind of set the example. No mistakes. Let's go at it and let's win here. What I like about Fiorentina, though, they possess something that Alkmaar didn't, and that's the ability to penetrate. Their fullbacks, left back Biragi and Dodo, bro, they're basically wingers. They get forward and they go all the way up. They have the ability to dribble, but they also have an incredible knack at sending in very good balls. And then you have a different avenue of attack. You have Bonaventura and Castrovilli, 2 ball handlers. That's it. They handle the ball and they're very good at it. They can do tight little passes, but they can also combine with their forwards. But then you have a player, X Factor, Nico Gonzalez, who has had an incredible playoff appearances in this UEFA Conference League, and he's going off, bro, scoring damn near a goal every appearance in this tournament, and he's so good, whether it's in the box, scoring headers, or just out wide for him to supply good crosses or to take players off the dribble. Fiorentina, I think, have a lot of ways to attack. My only thing is, kind of like you said, I think West Ham just have slightly better ability in every single position. And I think more so defensively. Because where I think Fiorentina's biggest weakness is their two center backs, Igor and Ranieri. Or maybe it's Milenkovic. I don't trust any of them, man. They're way too shoddy, way too inconsistent. And when you have players like Ben Rama, Lucas Paqueta, Michael Antonio,
Jared Bowen.
Gotta
throw him in there.
Gotta throw him in
He's
there.
done great.
Lanzini off the bench. Pablo Fornals to provide good midfield impetus off the bench as well. One of them is going to break down those two center back pairings. And in over 90 minutes in a final, when your mental toughness is really tested, I think Fiorentina will crack first before a team like West Ham. So that's my thing is I don't see a big gap between the two. I just see a bigger weakness in Fiorentina, which is why I have West Ham winning the final.
Oh, you flipped at the end of the day.
I flipped.
Damn, dude.
Fiorentina's overall performance against Basel completely changed it because I think Basel are actually similar to West Ham as far as physicalness, as far as the way they approach the game. West Ham are just better. And so Fiorentina have struggled against Basel. They're going to struggle against West Ham. Now, here's the thing. West Ham can't get complacent because, like I said, Fiorentina have very good offensive players. But I'm just backing Fiorentina to make more mistakes than West Ham. And I think West Ham will take advantage of that.
So ultimately, you only see Roma lifting a title for an Italian club.
Yeah, I do see
Damn.
Roma beating Sevilla.
Okay.
But,
Okay.
and like I said, though, just to make it clear, Fiorentina will make this final fun. But I think West Ham are just a little better.
I want to see it, man. I really do. I want to entertain the idea of what if the opposite happens, though? What if Fiorentina wins? What if Roma wins? What if Inter wins, bro? What does that mean if 3 Italian teams win the fucking European competitions?
We'd have to truly, and I mean truly, like reevaluate everything. Like on the pod, we'd have a 3-hour session where we go through each team's season and we say, okay, where did we get the analysis wrong?
Yeah.
We're like, okay, in this game, we should have picked that up. You know what I mean? We'd have to really evaluate it. Like, truly go back, look at the papers, look at the video, look at the tapes, see where we got it wrong. Because I think for even 2 Italian teams out of the 3 to win it would be pretty impressive.
That'd be impressive,
Yeah.
but ultimately, I see none of them winning it, and I think that will be important because my thing is, bro, if no Italian team wins it, no one's going to say a fucking word.
Yeah, no,
And I'll be in the background like, I fucking called this shit. And when they were all in the tournament, when there was 5 Italian teams in the semifinals of all these competitions, no one would stop talking about the fucking prowess of the Italian league. And I got fucking headaches from that shit, man.
Yeah.
Tired of that shit. I just don't buy into it just yet. I just think it's a chaos of a knockout tournament. I think we're going to see it ultimately close itself out with these 3 European matches. But regardless, what I love about it, man, is that they're going to be amazing games and that they're setting themselves up to just be really entertaining matches for any casual viewer to watch. The Europa Conference League, the Europa League, and the UEFA Champions League is upon us, and I can't wait to see what happens. So with that, I want to close this episode out, and I want to say thank you to any new listeners, to anybody following the podcast. Make sure to rate us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify if you have the opportunity. Make sure to subscribe, like, and comment on YouTube. And as always, stay updated with us, man. If you want to shoot us a message, DM the Gim and Go on Instagram, and I'll be happy to respond back, man. We'll see you guys next week for what will possibly be a solo Reynoso episode with Soltero going on a little bit of a trip, a little bit of a bender. And I will see you guys next time. Peace.